You know that truck. You've seen it parked outside a hardware store, or idling at a job site, or sitting in a driveway between two newer vehicles like it doesn't notice the company. The paint has oxidized to something closer to a memory of its original color. The tailgate doesn't close flush anymore without a specific lift and push combination that only the owner knows. The bench seat has a permanent impression on the driver's side. The dashboard has a crack running diagonally across it that appeared sometime during the second Bush administration and has been ignored completely ever since. And the person who drives it, if you ask them whether they've thought about getting something newer, will look at you with a particular expression. Not defensiveness, not embarrassment. Something closer to genuine confusion about why you'd ask. These people exist everywhere, and they're becoming rarer. And the psychology underneath why they keep driving what they drive, while the rest of the world moves on to trucks with heated seats and 12-inch touchscreens and financing terms that stretch across 6 years, is one of the most honest things a vehicle has ever revealed about the person behind the wheel. This isn't about money. That needs to be said first, because it's the assumption everyone makes and it's usually wrong. Plenty of old truck drivers could replace what they have. Many of them have replaced other things in their lives. Their tools, their work equipment, their phones. Items where the upgrade actually changed the outcome of what they were doing. They kept the truck anyway. And that decision, that specific, deliberate non-decision that looks from the outside like inertia, is what's psychologically worth understanding. Here's where it starts. Modern trucks aren't really trucks anymore, in the psychological sense. They're status objects wearing truck clothes. The average new full-size pickup in the United States now costs more than $50,000. The bed, the component that defines the entire category, goes unused by the majority of owners for the majority of the time they own the vehicle. Researchers studying consumer behavior at the University of Michigan documented what they called aspirational utility purchasing, the pattern of buying tools associated with a certain kind of life rather than the life itself. The new truck buyer often isn't buying capacity. They're buying an identity adjacent to capacity, the idea of someone who hauls things, builds things, works with their hands, without necessarily doing any of those things consistently. The truck became a costume before it became a vehicle, and the market followed that shift completely. The person driving an old pickup truck has, consciously or not, stepped entirely outside that transaction. Their truck didn't cost $50,000. It cost what it cost, years ago, and has been paid for in full ever since. In money and in time, and in the particular intimacy that develops between a person and a machine when they've worked through enough problems together. The vehicle was never a costume. It was, from the beginning, a tool. And that distinction, tool versus costume, is where the psychology of these drivers diverges most sharply from the market that left them behind. There's a man named Dale, 61 years old, from a small town outside Knoxville. He's driven the same 1994 F-150 for 23 years. Not because he couldn't replace it. He runs a small excavation business and buys new equipment when new equipment will do the job better. He replaced his excavator 4 years ago, his trailer 2 years before that. The truck, he says, already does the job. He knows exactly what it will and won't carry, exactly how it handles on a gravel road in the rain, exactly what that particular knock from the engine means and what it doesn't mean. He's rebuilt the carburetor twice, replaced the transmission once, and can diagnose most problems before he's fully out of the cab. His adult son drives a new truck with a warranty and a monthly payment, and Dale respects that without wanting it for himself. He said something in conversation once that stayed. "That truck has never lied to me." It took a moment to understand what he meant. He meant that the truck has no interface between what it's doing and what it shows him. When something is wrong, he feels it directly. When everything is right, he knows. There's no screen telling him what to think about the vehicle he's sitting in. The honesty is mechanical, and therefore total. That experience connects to something psychologists have documented extensively across multiple skill domains. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi at the University of Chicago, whose decades of research on mastery and optimal experience remain among the most cited in positive psychology, found consistently that humans derive deep and durable satisfaction from relationships with systems they understand completely. Not partially, not through an intermediary, but all the way down to the mechanism. The satisfaction isn't about the system being simple, it's about the understanding being total. A person who knows their truck at that level isn't driving a vehicle. They're operating a system they've internalized over years, and that internalization produces a specific kind of competence that psychologists call embodied expertise, knowledge that lives in the hands and the instincts as much as in the mind. This matters because embodied expertise is increasingly rare, and its absence is felt at a diffuse psychological level that most people can't quite locate or name. Sherry Turkle at MIT, who has spent her career studying how humans relate to objects and machines, has written about what she calls the loss of the mechanical vernacular, the gradual disappearance of the common human experience of understanding how things work. For most of human history, most people maintained a direct relationship with the primary tools of their daily life. They could fix what broke, modify what didn't fit, and extend the life of what they owned through their own knowledge and effort. That capacity has been systematically engineered out of modern consumer products, including modern vehicles, through proprietary software, sealed systems, and warranty terms that void coverage for owner repairs. Old trucks exist outside that system. They are, in many cases, among the last remaining objects in their owner's lives that can be fully known and fully fixed by the person who uses them. And that full knowability does something to the psychology of the person who maintains it, whether or not they've ever found words for what. Albert Bandura at Stanford, whose research on self-efficacy remains foundational in psychology, documented that genuine, evidence-based confidence in one's own competence, the kind built through repeated successful problem-solving rather than through affirmation or credential, produces measurably different outcomes in stress tolerance, decision-making, and resilience than any other form of confidence does. Every time the owner of an old truck diagnoses a problem, sources a part, and fixes what broke, they're building a data point in that evidence base. The truck isn't just transportation, it's a continuous, low-level self-efficacy practice. And over 20 years of that practice, the psychological accumulation is substantial, even if it's never been consciously named. Now stop here for a moment, because something honest needs to be said. Not everyone driving an old truck is doing it from a position of psychological clarity. Some are stuck. Some are avoiding a financial decision they've been putting off for years and calling it preference. Some have let a vehicle deteriorate past the point where keeping it makes practical or safety sense, and are using identity language to avoid acknowledging that. The line between, "This truck has served me well and continues to," and "I haven't dealt with this yet," is real, and it's worth drawing honestly. The psychology described in this video belongs to the first group, the people for whom the truck is a deliberate and considered choice rather than a deferred problem. The easiest way to tell the difference is usually simple. Does the truck work? Is it maintained? Does the owner know what's going on with it? If yes, keep reading. If not, the psychology is a different conversation. For the people in the first group, there's a layer to this that goes beyond competence and embodied knowledge, and it has to do with what the truck represents in the social landscape the owner moves through every day. Barry Schwartz at Swarthmore College spent years documenting what he called the paradox of choice, the finding that beyond a certain threshold, more options don't increase satisfaction, they increase anxiety, second-guessing, and the chronic low-grade dissatisfaction of wondering whether you chose correctly. Modern consumer culture has applied that paradox to identity itself. The options for what kind of person to be, what kind of life to signal, what kind of vehicle to drive as a statement about all of the above, have multiplied to a degree that produces genuine psychological exhaustion in people who engage with them seriously. The old truck driver, often without theorizing about any of this, has exited that exhaustion almost entirely. The truck is not a statement, it's a tool. It was chosen once, a long time ago, and the question of what it says about the person driving it is not a question they spend energy on. That energy is available for other things. Tim Kasser at Knox College, who has produced some of the most rigorous research on materialism and psychological well-being, found consistently that people who organize their identity and self-worth around possessions report higher levels of anxiety, lower relationship satisfaction, and reduced sense of personal meaning than those who don't, regardless of the actual value or quality of what they own. The old truck driver isn't just avoiding a car payment. They're, often without knowing the research exists, living on the psychologically healthier side of a divide that Kasser spent his career documenting. The truck costs them nothing in identity maintenance, because the truck is not load-bearing in that way. It doesn't need to impress anyone to justify its existence in the driveway. It just needs to start. There is also something happening with time that rarely gets discussed in conversations about people who keep old vehicles, and it's connected to what researchers studying autobiographical memory call object-mediated recall, the phenomenon by which physical objects serve as access points to specific periods of a person's life, in a way that abstract memory alone cannot replicate. The old truck has been present for things. It has a history with its owner that is written into its body, into the specific dents and repairs and modifications that have accumulated across however many years. A new truck would be clean, and clean means empty, and for many owners, that emptiness is not felt as freshness but as loss, the erasure of a physical record of a life being lived. When Dale talks about his truck, he talks about specific jobs he used it on, specific loads he carried, a specific winter, where it started every morning when nothing else in the county would. The truck is not a machine in the abstract. It is a machine with a particular story, and that story belongs to both of them. This is also, quietly, why old truck drivers form the communities they form. Not organized communities necessarily, not clubs or forums, but the immediate and wordless recognition that passes between two people who drive the same category of vehicle, the nod in a parking lot, the brief conversation at a fuel stop that covers more ground in 4 minutes than most office small talk covers in an hour. There is an in-group here, but it's not built around brand loyalty or status, or the shared experience of having bought the same expensive thing. It's built around a shared orientation toward objects, toward work, toward the value of things that last, and the particular quality of respect that develops for something that keeps showing up. That is a different kind of belonging than consumer culture manufactures, and it is, by most measures, more durable. And maybe that's the real psychology underneath all of it. The old truck is not a failure to upgrade. It's not nostalgia, not stubbornness, not an inability to move with the times. For the people who choose it deliberately, it's the physical expression of a set of values that the market has largely stopped serving: utility over signal, knowledge over interface, duration over novelty, a relationship with a machine over a subscription to one. In a consumer landscape that has turned almost every durable good into a status object, and almost every status object into a monthly payment, the old truck sitting in the driveway is a quiet but legible refusal. The person who drives it has, usually without making a speech about any of this, decided that what a thing can do matters more than what a thing communicates, that what they know matters more than what they own, that the most honest relationship with a machine is one where nothing is hidden, where every sound means something you've learned to read, where the feedback is direct, and the trust has been built over years, and the cab smells like work, and the heater takes a few minutes to warm up properly, and that's fine. That's always been fine. Most people who see that truck in the parking lot see something old. The person who drives it sees something that has never once let them down when it mattered. And the distance between those two views says less about the truck than it does about how differently two people can measure the worth of the same thing. How long have you had yours? And what would it take to make you give it up? Drop it in the comments. We actually want to know.